Here are the solutions to yesterday's homework assignment. Pause the video and check your work. So the solutions to yesterday's homework, I'm going to work them out quickly. Sine formula is y over r, and since r is always positive, that means that our y value will be negative. The negative has to be with the y, and y is negative in two quadrants, in quadrant 3 and in quadrant 4, because they're both below the axis. I'm dropping the perpendicular and labeling the sides. My y is -1, r is 2, so that means this is a 30, 60, 90, with the radical 3 being the third side and a positive radical 3 for the quadrant 4 triangle. So since this is a 30, 60, 90, and my angle is across the 1, that's going to be a 30-degree reference angle. So my first answer will be 180 plus 30, which is 210. And my second answer will be 360, since it's in the quadrant 4. 360 minus 30, which is 330 degrees. Converting these to radians, you should have gotten 7 pi over 6 and then 11 pi over 6. My shortcut to figuring out the radians is use your reference angle, so you know you're going to be at pi over 6 because 30 is pi over 6. And then figure out what you need to multiply that by to get the original answer. So if I have 30 reference angle, I need 30 times 11 to become 330. And in this case, I need 30 times 7 to give me 210. So those were our answers, actually. For our second problem, cosine theta equals root 3 over 2, I'm labeling first, that's x over r. So since r is always positive, that means x needs to be positive for the fraction to be positive overall. So x is positive in two quadrants. It's positive in quadrant 1, and it's positive in quadrant 4 because it's to the right of the y-axis. Dropping the perpendiculars, I can already tell looking at the numbers that this is going to be, by the way, I'm putting the root 3 on the x side, and r is 2. And I can tell that this is going to be a 30, 60, 90, where it's 1 and -1. So let's label our reference angle. Again, across from the one we have 30 degrees, and our reference angle again is across the one at 30 degrees. So my first answer in quadrant 1 is simply 30, and my second answer will be 330 degrees, since it's in quadrant 4. Converting to radians, I have pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Number 3, tangent theta equals square root 3. So I'm writing my tangent formula, which is y over x. Put that over 1 so I can see what my y is and what the x is. And notice that tangent is positive, but that means that my y can be positive and x can be positive, or they can both be negative, because a negative divided by a negative will also give me positive radical 3. So I am identifying my two quadrants as, so the two quadrants are quadrant 1, where both are positive, and in quadrant 3. I'm labeling y as radical 3 on both. I'm labeling x as 1 on both, and I'm going to check my signs. So positive x, positive y, and then negative x, negative y. And confirm that you do indeed get, when you put this over this, you get the positive radical 3 that you are looking for. Now my reference angle is actually across from the radical 3, meaning that it's going to be 60 degrees. And as always, your reference angles will be the same. So my first answer is 60. My second answer, I need to do some math, so it's going to be 180 plus 60 to go all the way, and that will be 240 degrees. So let me show the work. Remember, if I was in this quadrant, I would do 180 minus the reference angle. And if I was in this quadrant, I'd do 360 minus the reference angle. But alas, we're in quadrant 3, so we'll do 180 plus. Now let's, final step, convert this to radians. So 60 is pi over 3, and 240 is a multiple of 60, so we'll also have a pi over 3. And the question is, 60 times what gives me 240? The answer is 4, so my 60 times 4 is 240, so we have 4 pi over 3. Let's do number 4. Cosecant equals 2. So cosecant, I remember the formula is the opposite of sine, because they're partners, because one starts with a C, so the other starts with an S. And sine is y over r. Cosecant will have to be r over y. Now, I'm putting this over 1, and r is always positive, so that means y has to be positive here. My y's are positive in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. Drop the perpendicular for both, and let's label our y's. Whoops. Our y is 1, our r is 2. And that means that the x side would have to be radical 3, and it's negative radical 3 here. So let's finish up. My reference angle is across the 1, so it's 30. First answer is 30 degrees. My second answer will be, the work is 180 minus 30, since I'm not quite all the way to the 180. I need to be a little less, and that's 150. Converting finally to radians, 30 is, we've memorized pi over 6, and this will be something pi over 6. So what times 30 gives me 150? The answer is 5, and those are my 2 solutions. So I hope that was helpful. Check your work from yesterday's homework.